All right. Okay, stop whispering.
I know,
Rana.
sorry.
Yeah, use your Rana voice. Speak out, speak
The
out.
loud voice.
All right, wow. Okay, we have the Hue Crew here.
Yay.
Together again.
Yay! Together again. And hey, what do you think of the space?
Beautiful.
Swish Co-Create. I know, and it's been amazing
Yes.
taping here, and we've had some really, really good times. And, I want to say it's about high time we talk about a really sensitive subject.
What is
We're just going to launch right into it.
I'm just going to go right into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready too.
Okay,
Let's do it.
Babies. Fertility.
I'm tired just thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I'm tired of answering about it.
I had a call today with somebody who had
Oh.
3 kids on her, like who were pulling at her while we were on our call. And I'm like, I've been there, done that, it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So you have 3, and Tracy, you have
2.
2. I have none, and I'm 41. And
I have
But
a
how many
bonus.
do you have by proxy?
so
So
actually,
how many are you an auntie to?
So I'm an auntie to probably like 30.
Okay, see,
Right.
so you
But-
have you
but
have
to
a
be-
major job.
But to be fair, my sister is just having her first. So my
That's
immediate
exciting.
family.
Okay.
So I'm just about to be an auntie.
So you're going to be a second mama for the first
Yes,
time. That's
yeah.
so exciting.
And
yeah.
we were just talking about this before we walked in. I was like, I just moved like next door to her place.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, that's
yeah,
like my
yeah.
dream to
I
have
know,
my sister
I know.
live next door to me.
But that's
my husband knows this already.
But it's just
That's your culture, though? Like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
is,
And I feel like
Yeah.
it is. I feel like, and I'm also she's my baby.
Yeah.
You know, like
Okay.
she's
Yeah.
like a good 15 years younger than me. So just to
wow.
be with her and support her.
Absolutely.
And to be
Oh my
fair,
gosh, I
this
could cry.
child
That's so
is.
nice.
I'm just taking her, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna take her. But
Totally.
it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun
for
shopping
sure.
for other kids, right?
Yeah.
Like
It is.
Yeah.
now my own is a whole different story.
But you don't have to have one now. You've got one.
I
By
know,
surrogate.
but I think the issue is, and I mean we just kind of jumped into it, is that there's an expectation,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
whether it's a
Your expectations
social
to oh, yeah, okay.
expectation or a cultural expectation, there's an expectation. You know, like people literally
And-
wonder what's wrong with you if you
Well-
do not have a child at
Okay.
41.
But may I say, that's
Please.
a function of the patriarchy that we live in.
I agree.
Because women are full human beings
Yeah.
despite
Without-
the
yeah.
usage of their uterus.
Yeah.
Really?
There
Really?
is-
Really?
Or
Don't
not,
go there.
actually. Whether you have a uterus or not, whether you choose to have children or not, you are a full and complete, amazing human being. So yeah, my reproductive history is none of anyone's business, right?
But it becomes business, and I also think it's somewhat political,
Of
right?
course it
so,
is.
So anytime anyone wants a wedge issue, and I mean we're just about to launch into 2 elections, and we see what's happening in the States and across the world. Anytime anyone wants a wedge issue, it becomes abortion, right?
Oh, okay.
That's it. Are you pro
Reproductive
yeah.
rights, period,
and
right?
and that in itself, right? It just kind of perpetuates this idea
I'm just going to
that
take a sip as we talk about
it
that.
just perpetuates this
You
idea
did that.
that
You did that.
it's not really up to us somehow.
No.
You know, and that's where that's the issue.
Well, but it's interesting too, though, the whole family kind of concept of what we call the family unit, white picket fence, 2 kids and a dog and mom and dad, has changed. I mean,
I'm a bonus mom.
you're a bonus mom, and that was the
And
first
I
time.
always dated guys really that had children, and I guess just I'm a magnet for that. But I think that there's so many blended families, very much like you're saying. Like I'm very instrumental in my sister's, like the upbringing of her children. I became an aunt at 12 years old, so I've always been around it. But I think that what you're saying is like, listen, people, you really have no rights as to what I do in my bedroom. 1, that's my business. 2, when I decide to have a child or don't decide to have a child, like it's just none of your business.
Yeah.
But it's
the
also
piece that
offensive in
is-
a lot of ways. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But it's also offensive in a lot of ways because there's a lot of issues, right? So I won't delve into it, but there's a lot of issues that people have that prevent them
Of course.
from having children or making it very difficult to have children.
And the thing with asking somebody
It's
whether
so
or not they
offensive.
have children or whatever, it's like, do you know if that person has suffered a miscarriage before or had an ectopic pregnancy or whatever
Or
issue they may
premature
have?
ovarian failure,
It is
or You know, like
It is
there's a
such a
list of
thoughtless
things.
question to ask, and I really wish that now in 2019 people would just stop asking, because if somebody wants you to know the status of their uterus, they'll tell you.
And you know what?
Or
We'll
unless
pull
you see
up-
the head actually
we'll
coming
pull
out,
up-
don't ask if someone's pregnant.
Yeah.
How about
But
that?
never mind that, right? We look at celebrities, like I won't name any names, but we look at celebrities.
Unlike name names.
Okay, we look at Gabrielle Union, for example.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Who had multiple miscarriages.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You know,
She's a
Dwayne
bonus
Wade-
mom too?
She's a bonus mom,
Yeah.
but now they had a baby
Right,
through
okay.
surrogate.
Yeah.
And then Dwayne Wade also has like a side child who will remain nameless on social media, you know, because it was around the same time. And so, but you look at it and people are tearing down Gabrielle, like she's my best friend. But like, obviously, you know,
You're going to stick up for her, I hear
they're
you.
tearing her down because she's not a real mom. And I'm just like, that's so disappointing.
so
in this day
painful.
and age.
Sad.
Yeah.
But also, you know, as a bonus mom, I look at it like Kelvin's been amazing as far as being like, I will manage the dynamics of Khalid's mom and that relationship, right? But also, it's hard because when the child comes to you and says, well, my mom says you don't like me, I'm like, well, I love you. And I love both people that made you. So if you have other questions, go back to your parents,
Yeah.
right? And learning to kind of know how to navigate that, because
absolutely.
in this day and age, let's be honest, marriages aren't lasting like they used to. So the likelihood that you will have a blended family at some point in time in your life
Is
is
high.
increased,
Yeah.
right? Or that
Or that you may come by, like another girlfriend of mine, her sibling passed away. So she assumed guardianship of that sibling's child. So now she has a bonus child that she
Yes.
has raised as her own
Yes.
since this child was about 14 maybe, which again is a critical age.
Yes,
So
it is.
someone would say to her, like, you're not that child's mother, like, that's a
Yeah,
that's a
I don't
painful
need to
thing to
birth
say.
the
Yes,
child.
exactly.
to be, and that's why I'm never like, I don't want to be your mom. I'm not your mom. You have a great mom. Love her. She's amazing.
Yeah.
But when it comes on to impacting or imparting something
Yeah.
into somebody's life,
Yeah.
that comes in multiple
Yeah.
forms,
and,
right?
And then
it's
you're kind
good.
of getting to you're really just getting to this entire conversation, and I believe it's cultural in a
Yes.
lot of ways
Yeah.
that I know from my world, you know, and I'm like a 50-50 cultural person, right?
Yeah.
Like I just basically do what I want. And that's basically
I think that's a
my
very
life.
first generation immigrant thing to say.
Very
Totally.
first
Yes.
generation,
Yeah.
right? And most of us who are first generation,
Yes.
you're kind of half, and
You can dip one leg in and hear the old school stuff, and you're just like, no, don't like that. And you're like,
Yeah.
And
okay,
then
I'm
you go
over
and
here
do
now.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
but,
yeah.
but it
Totally.
does take a village.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that in a world that is so divisive and negative and racist at times, when you're supporting babies and you're teaching them things, of course you want as many people
Yes.
with caring people and good humans talking about how to be a good person, you know, and you want to be teaching them that you make decisions based on empathy and love. You know, you don't want to be an a-hole, excuse my language, but they'll learn the things that you want to teach children. And in a world that's so shitty, I'm going to say it. In
We
a world
can
that's
swear, we're
so
not network
difficult,
television.
Yeah.
you know, let's embrace the village,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like not make everyone feel bad or almost like you're missing something because you are not the leader of the child, right? You don't have to be the leader. You just be good.
One of the topics that I was thinking about for my blog, actually, an upcoming post. So I don't know if you saw my post on just a few days after my birthday about my sister and how she's basically like my kid's second mom. Okay, so she was like you. She was single, didn't have kids of her own. But when I had my first child, she was basically there from the get-go. I had a C-section. I couldn't even do anything. She was there and like helping me carry the bassinet and all this stuff, right? And helping with Jack. She is his second mom, totally. And in Filipino culture, like she's his godmother too. So all my kids call her Ninang, which means godmother, which is the closest thing you can get to me, right? And I'm so grateful for her presence in their life. But one of the things about the village is that, I don't know if you guys, when you were growing up, but you didn't have just one mom, but every mom at that party or at that gathering was your mom.
Oh,
and if she
100%.
looked at you
a certain kind
or
of
gave
way,
you that,
you better stop.
You best be.
you stop.
And
Yeah.
don't make
Yeah.
me go talk to
And
you.
that's how I raise my kids. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not just me. And if a friend, if like we're out a bunch of people and a friend of mine admonishes my child for doing something, it's like, oh, hands up, sister.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Do it.
because I didn't
Yeah.
catch it, whatever.
Yeah.
They know that somebody else is watching them, and it's not just me. But but that I've empowered my village
Yeah.
to act on my behalf
guys,
for
I
the
need
greater
That's
that.
a
good.
cultural thing,
Right?
though.
But it isn't.
You like, to me personally, I feel like it's a cultural thing because I know a lot of.
You do the same thing then.
I do a lot of
Yeah.
people. I jump into a lot of conversations that I probably shouldn't. Right. So I have, to be fair, like I have like 13 or 14 or 15-year-old nieces and nephews, right? And I'm always the one that people call, quote unquote, when they're, making bad
trouble.
decisions, right? But I jump in and
Yeah.
I yell and I do my thing, and not yell, but I mean I definitely
You scold.
I definitely scold.
But and then jumping into the conversation or whatever now, because I can see it's like, for our culture, Japanese, it's very reserved, and I have my cousin here, Marl, and she could, she can vouch for that, and we just don't do that, but we are very close. But I'm just wondering too, the yelling, and I'm thinking Italians and Portuguese, they yell at each other, and it's all like noise, but they're so together as a family.
But I think that comes from
Does
the
that
core
work?
values, right? And
Yeah.
what I was going to say is like I worked in daycare for 4 years. And
Really?
yeah, I did.
Oh.
So my child rearing stuff is amazing. Like I
I-
could be
I
like,
know.
there's kids yelling.
with me,
Listen,
so myself.
I'm like, I could hear kids yelling behind me, know who it was that picked on who, just yell without looking, and they stop. And so I'm literally the lady in the store who, like, your kid's having a tantrum, I look at your kid. Like,
She
you
would
need to
say that.
stop.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to stop. And the kid's kind of like, I'm like, I know, your mother's never done that to you before, but you're going to listen today.
I want to
Like, don't ruin my shopping experience.
Been there, done that. Because in my life, all it took was the thought that you were gonna get the look.
Right.
If you got to the look,
Totally.
things were over.
I'm
yeah.
31
got to the
this
look, you're
week.
done.
I'm 31 this
Yeah.
week, and my mom could still be like, Shana, and I'm like,
that
yeah,
voice.
I'm gonna stop. Sorry, Mom.
I know.
I'll
But
poke
but
it.
I think that's even, and I know we're jumping around, but
Yeah.
even I think that part's even, at 41,
Yeah.
it'll be different,
Yeah.
right? So I think that when I was 31, my parents could look at me the wrong way and everything would shut down. I'd be like,
Right.
oh, I'm not pushing that button,
Right. Yeah.
right? Because you don't
Yeah.
want to kind of, whatever, like you still feel like you're a
But
child.
you get to give that look
But
as an aunt.
But I get to give that look
Yeah.
as an aunt, but at 41, you now have parents who are dependent on you.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess the point is that people do the best that they can do.
Yeah. Literally.
People do the best that they can do, and we're trying to produce good people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Good humans,
if
yeah.
you're trying to produce good people, either embrace the village and have aunties and uncles and doing all whoever else kind of helping with
Role
your children,
models,
role
right?
models. And if you can't do that for whatever reason, then at least try your best. All you have to do, and I know it's really hard and it seems really easy from a non-mom, but teach your kids to be good people. Like the world sucks.
Yeah.
You know what?
You
My
know,
friend was at a
like,
dog
things
park the other
are-
day. He
yeah.
was talking about bad puppies. I'm like, no, there's no bad puppies. There's just bad owners. It's the
Totally.
same thing with
Yeah.
kids.
It is.
There's
Yeah.
no such
Just
thing as
teach.
bad
So what-
kids. Just
what
parents
is-
who don't pay attention or who don't
What
care.
is a good person? What constitutes
I
good?
have the answer to that. Well, you can go first. You go first.
Oh, I didn't love it.
Let's kick it
or maybe
to our
ask the
audience
question.
and
I want
see
to
what
ask
they
you.
think.
Marl, what constitutes a good person in your mind?
That's tough because I think it's really multifaceted. I think we need to look at the empathy side of things. Empathy is a good attribute. Helping others, being authentic, being real. But for children, being a good it's hard, right? Because when we're talking about kids, we don't want to say
good.
good and bad. Be good,
Yeah.
And for them, they're like, okay, well, what's good? My personality is to be really energetic. So is that good in one parent's eyes? Is my son, both of my kids are very, very energetic.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about other people, other parents, not everyone likes that.
Something that my boyfriend says is, and this is how he raises Khalid, is should something happen to him, right? He's military, so should something happen to him and he can't come back and somebody else has to take over raising Khalid, are you going to become a nuisance or a burden to somebody else? Or are you going to be able to be like self-sufficient and go in and kind of take care of yourself and all of that kind of stuff. I think that, and we've had the good and bad discussion before,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But I think it boils down to, do you have manners? Are you respectful? Can you take direction? Because when you're a child in anybody's home, and even an adult in somebody's home, you still have to take direction. Can you mold and adapt into your surroundings? But at the baseline, be kind
Yeah.
and be
And
helpful.
I think that's the word.
But I think
that's
that's
the word.
that-
Actually, it's
yeah.
not about being a good person.
Yeah.
It's about being
a kind person.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that word is underutilized.
Totally.
Though I
Yes.
see it rising.
Yeah.
And I think that word needs to overtake good because
Yes.
good
Totally agree.
has no values
Yeah.
attached to it
No.
as far
It's
as I'm
subjective.
concerned.
You're actually
Right?
right.
It is. I
Yeah.
think kind is it embodies empathy.
Yeah.
It embodies
Exactly.
authenticity.
Because for
and
a
it embodies
child-
respect.
For a child who's 5,
Yes.
you say be
Yeah.
good. They'd have no reference to that. But if you say use your kind words,
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
use your kind,
Yeah.
please and thank you.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids all the time, no matter what somebody looks like, talks like, dresses like, everybody
Everybody-
has the
yes.
same feelings.
Exactly.
How would
That's
you
good.
like somebody
That's
to
good.
make you feel?
Yeah.
really
Do you
important.
feel? Do you feel? You know. Are you using your kind words to this
Yeah.
person? Are you making them feel happy? Are
That's
you
right.
making them feel sad?
That's
That's,
right.
how
Yeah.
you know. If you start, if you use that as a basis, then they grow to be human
Exactly.
beings
But the
with
whole
those
point is
values.
that that starts at home, right? And when we're talking about the village, so as like first generation Canadians, right? The village looks very
we all are,
different.
right?
We all are,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very different from when you go back home.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
But it's interesting raising kids as second generation now.
For sure.
Because I feel like I grew up in Manila. Even though I grew up in Winnipeg, it was Manila within the four corners of my house, right? So my kids have like the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They have that old school mentality of respect your elders,
Yes.
and you know, like with the greeting of the
Yes.
godparent, you know, like
Yes.
all
Yeah.
that stuff, along with their North American counterparts of, okay, I live in this current society,
Right.
and I can bring those old world values into this.
Yeah.
It's a really
So
interesting
I'm gonna
mix.
throw it to
Yeah.
Andrea and her sister Ashley. So you feel the same sentiments as
I think
Susie?
Shana, yeah,
And Shana?
everyone
Yeah.
pretty much answered, the question of just being a good person, being kind, doing
just-
good in this world.
Yeah, and just being respectful to everyone around you. I think that's
Yeah.
really important. And also being able to adapt with
Yes. So
your surroundings is very important as well.
So I want to throw it out like, okay, so I am like really, really old school, and actually I'm second generation Japanese.
I
Yes,
didn't know
yeah, my
that.
parents were born in Henna, BC, which is now Maple Ridge.
Oh, wow. I had
But
no
they're
idea.
part of the internment,
Oh, wow.
and they settled here in Winnipeg. But anyways, when I was growing up or whatever, I was the only different one. I was the only Asian.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was the experience like for you girls when you were growing up? Was there any even kind of a acknowledgement or anything? And I don't know, was there even when you were growing up that you were,
There was a handful of
Yeah.
people like me, like a handful of half Filipinas, but
Yes.
there was not.
Wow.
And now I meet them all. We're like the same age. I'm like, where were you 30 years ago? We could have gotten together. Anyway.
so like even
But
for
it's-
you girls
it's
growing
different
up?
now.
Yeah. Was it?
I guess for us growing up, we've always kind of been in, like, going to school and stuff. It was very diverse. Like, we always had friends in different, ethnicities and cultures, and so we were able to adapt that way, and just to be able to accept everyone for who they are.
Yeah.
And like, we put out so much love in the world. Our parents always taught us to be kind, and just things like that. So I think, surrounding yourself with the different people and the different cultures really kind of shaped us to who we are.
Yeah, and also back home, like our mom always taught us to always treat everyone with like equal and respect, and so that also kind of like shaped us to.
Who you are, and
Those core values
Yeah, the core
in the home, right? Like I think that we don't do enough of that. When we look from a business and a branding perspective,
Right.
we go, what are the core values of your business? What's the core values of your company? But how many of us have sat down and said, what do I actually believe in? And also as you evolve and you grow, that shifts, right? What I valued at 20, thank God, is not what I value anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And when I met Kelvin and he's 10 years my senior, it's like, whoa, there's very different priorities here and you have to shift again. And then Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so one of my favorite quotes that I saw this week was that changing your mind after getting new information does not make you a hypocrite. And I thought that was so profound
Perfect, yeah.
because you cannot get stuck in a way
No.
of thinking because you thought that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because things change,
Well, it's
people
concept
change,
learning.
times change. Yes,
Yeah.
and so you think, okay, I might have thought that 10 years ago, but I've evolved. I've moved past that. This is now my new value set, and I'm going to work from this point on. And I thought that was so good to not get stuck in that trap of, well, I guess I have to think this forever now.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But I just think it's super interesting, right? Because just how you guys are talking about growing up in diverse areas. Like, I actually did not grow up in a diverse area. I actually legitimately, until I was probably 20-something, was the only brown person, quote unquote, in my entire, because I grew up in like rural Manitoba, right? So there was nobody but us. But going back to what happens in the home, right? Even though I wasn't surrounded by anyone who looked like me, who acted like me, who had to go home like me, or whatever it was, because I was so strong in the way that I was raised, that it kind of influenced those people who had never seen anyone brown before. So I remember going to parties and being snuck out to parties or whatever when I was a kid. Mom and Dad don't watch this. And I remember going to just like whatever, like just going out, and when people would see it, and people who I'm still friends with, right? People who are just like my kind of ride or dies. They would make sure that there was no booze around me at that time because the family doesn't drink. They would make sure that when they were getting pizza, there was no pork. And I remember instances where, you know, my friend Jules or someone would be like, Rana, there's pork on there, you can't eat it, from across the room.
That's good.
You know, just being at a party. But it just goes to show how one person being strong in who they are can actually influence everyone around
I love that.
right? And that's super important, because if you're strong in your house and your parents and your family are teaching you those core values of who you are, you know, and there's something that really upset me at the time, and I see it now, and I remember being in Fredericton, and I was just talking about it. Like, I remember after going to, I remember we'd go to weddings, like when we were young, and we'd come back with henna all over our hands at that time. This is like in the 80s. And people would be like, "Ooh, what's that in your hands?" and blah blah. And then I remember thinking, "Oh, that's ugly. Like I don't want that on my hands because it's ugly." And then I see it now, and I'm just
They've
like,
all got tattoos.
Who legitimized this?
Yeah.
Like, who legitimized this?
But
Like, why did somebody else have to legitimize something that was mine, that was ours? And I think that that's a really important question.
It is.
And it's a racial issue.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're Filipino, whether you're from, from East Indian or Pakistani or Iranian, like wherever you are, Japanese, like we have to be able to be absolute in who we are.
But also be resilient, right? So I grew up in Fort Richmond, went to French immersion school. Yes. And you know what? I remember at the grade 6 lock-in, I really liked this one boy, whatever. And you know, we're having like a dance party to NSYNC, like bye bye bye. And he's like, but why do you dance like that? Because I'm all hips. Like, I have Caribbean culture in me. This is how we move. Like, why are your thighs like that? What do you mean? Because you don't see the differences until other people point them out. But the difference, and it's really crazy. I'm gonna be like really transparent right now. But the crazy part is that it took like watching BET back in the day to be like, like I look like those girls, kind of.
And that's coming back. It's like identifying girls or women on, on TV with.
But that's what Rana's talking about in a completely different way. I never felt bad about myself at that point, but I was like, maybe we are different. But like, I'm still gonna dance like this. I like it. It works for me, right?
So
I'm 12.
but then what's the message? So then essentially the message is different isn't wrong. Right. Like being different isn't.
But I also think that in now in 2019, there's so much more diversity like
Yes.
kids my kids' age don't
Oh,
get it,
interesting.
which is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there's no one who's the only whatever. There's so much mix. Like when I used to go to a party with my parents, my dad would be the only white guy there. And now it's like, oh, there's so many of you.
Yes,
You're all
yes.
lined up for the punch seat. Look how that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's such a different scene. And it's just like, thank goodness, because no one will ever feel alone or different anymore, because we're all different now,
But
which
I
is
still feel
great.
like people do though.
They do.
They
Like,
do.
and that's the
No.
issue.
And
But
actually
I think
more
that's
than
the
lesser
ever.
and lesser.
and I think that's
Yes.
that's the point, right?
Yeah,
That
but I think
it takes
it's
time.
But it's also a different conversation, right? So if we look at like Black culture, that's going to be my example right now. We look at a white girl that might go to, you know, Jamaica and get braids put in and come back with cornrows, and we're like, that's like your what is that, cultural appropriation, blah blah. Like, have a rest, go sit down. It's okay.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So my question then is,
I'm gonna stay out of this conversation.
no, but it's about, because I always see things as, it has to be really extreme for me to view it as appropriation.
Right.
And I think that there's a fringe element who isn't even involved in
Right.
the actual original culture, who calls it appropriation as opposed to appreciation.
I think there's trendy things.
Yeah.
And people like to stir the pot.
Yeah,
Right?
okay.
And so I think
And it
that
comes a lot to food too. Like some people
Oh,
will say, like,
yeah.
nobody but Filipino people should cook Filipino food, and it's just like,
Right.
well, no one's going to get to taste it then. Like, unless you go to Lola's house, like, why can't we make this more mainstream as an appreciation thing,
But at the
and
end
an
of the
integration
day,
thing?
right? That's the whole point, is that it is about integration.
Mm-hmm.
Let's fast forward 50 years. It's going to be a melting pot.
Yes.
Right?
know.
Hallelujah.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's so much goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look amongst the cultures, we have a lot of the same things that we call different names.
Yeah, for
Oh, I
sure.
know, and
We
they're all
eat
the
the
same.
same
Yeah.
foods. We, all
We
of
all
that.
eat rice. I
Right?
can say,
Rice
oh,
We
is
just do it different.
Everybody here, we all eat
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, right?
It's
You
true.
know, we're all eating yams. We have roti, we do it differently.
Yeah.
We have curries, we do them differently,
But-
right?
Oh, okay, sorry. I have to do this. I'm always that person. There are some things, but
should
there
not be
just
done.
are some things that are not just cultural. They carry different weight.
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody in this universe today is going to tell me that being at Coachella wearing a headdress
Oh, no, no,
is
no,
in
no.
We're not
any
going that
way
far.
appropriate.
That's not the same thing.
No, but
Yeah,
so
no.
let's start at that.
Yeah.
And also, even for henna,
Yeah.
right? Henna has a specific cultural meaning
Yeah.
for us. It's not just a decoration.
Right.
It's not just
It's
to
a
look
ritual,
pretty.
correct?
It's there's something about it. Yeah, like there is something more
Symbolic,
detailed
Yes.
and symbolic
Yes.
about
Yes.
what it means.
Yeah.
So I think that, are you going to wear something that's beaded or embroidered? That's a different kind
I
of
think-
story, because everyone, like you're saying,
Where does
you
it cross
see
the line
it,
of
you
being
love
fashion,
it.
though?
But this is
But
what,
that's a
what the
different story, though,
conversation
right?
is there is fashion and then there's culture,
Yes.
right? So if I'm wearing a kimono today because I decided to,
Yeah.
right? But I'm making a fashion statement with this, and I'm not trying to demean the cultural representation behind it, then I think that's something different. When we go in blind,
Okay, so that's interesting because and you can chime in because you obviously know this
Yeah,
culture
you-
better than I do, but
yeah.
there have been like media pieces put out about Japanese culture saying we love it when people take our culture
Yes.
and make it their own, and
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kim's line. Kim's
lying.
Kimono.
yeah.
I
And
know.
she's now changing the name because she had so much backlash.
So how do you feel
Yes.
about
Oh,
that?
How do I feel about that? I don't think anything about it. I think
Okay.
that if she wanted to call it kimono, but she was, incorporating some cultural pieces, maybe she likes the Japanese culture.
I
Then-
don't know. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine
Or,
with it. Yeah.
but see, but this is, I'm totally on the opposite page of you guys.
it's good. We love this.
Yeah.
No, because this becomes a conversation about allowing people to have their own space, right? So for me, and I would go to, indigenous culture. It's not my place in any which way to step in and decide to promote or advocate. It's just not my place. It's somebody else's world, and it's somebody else's culture. Sorry.
And does it become
for me,
offensive when they're making
I think it's
no,
super offensive.
But when they're making money off it, as opposed to just
Totally.
appreciating it, right?
Appreciating
Because when
is a
we're
different
turning
story.
Benjamins over,
Kim
hand
Kardashian,
over fist.
sorry, but Kim Kardashian is not sitting there being like, oh, I love it so much. No, like you're making billions of dollars off this.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's people within the Japanese culture who probably had the same idea and the same process.
But you know
maybe-
what?
But I just think there's different world, like there's different
For
things.
example, we have a group of folks at the Japanese Cultural Center who are non-Japanese, and they're extremely involved.
Yes.
We started a kimono dressing course, and the ladies that run it are not Japanese.
That's amazing.
So
That's incredible.
they know the specific terminology for every single piece, and they will be, dressing us at Folklorama.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No.
And I wonder.
But I think it's two things, right?
Yeah.
Like, to your point, if there was somebody in the culture and you sat on that idea, too bad for you. Sorry,
different story, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, if there are people in the culture who can embrace it and do something with that. We have Caribbean spots in the city that literally I'm like, I really admire your effort to try and cook like us.
Are you going to come to the one
However-
near my house?
Sure.
No.
However, you didn't hit the mark. So go back and get some lessons.
Learn.
Right? And this is coming from a non-cook, but I am a food connoisseur.
Yes.
Right? And so, right? Right? And so then it boils back to, like, if you're open and you're willing to learn and you're willing to keep the cultural values and heritage of something and uphold it and teach that, I have no problems. If
So
you're-
what that comes down to for me is the intention behind
Well,
it.
Yeah,
and
that's
that's,
the
that's
intention.
the gray
Everyone else
area.
knows
That's
someone's
gray area.
intention.
You
Oh,
don't.
I think we
You
know
don't
what Kim
have- you
Kardashian's
can't know.
intention is.
No, you
Well,
don't.
to make money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
so,
we also
but
can't
I think
leverage
that so to be fair,
But I think
okay,
that's the
that's
thing
a
is that
very
when you,
high level.
when you
right?
cut a culture out of making money, that's the trouble piece I have.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying? When,
Sorry,
I
sorry.
shouldn't say making money, but when they are left out of the process with the intent for somebody else to profit off of that, that's when I
Okay,
get
so
my
I have a
back.
question.
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
So, if you would like to incorporate or build a company or a product, a service, whatever, based off of cultural, processes, whatever, do you think that you should then reach out to somebody from that culture and say, would you like to partner with me on this?
Well, yeah, because
you'd need
I
some
don't even think how you
collaboration.
would do
You
that.
can't.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
how
How
would
do
you
you-
think that you have the
So for
expertise.
example,
wherewithal
there's-
to do that?
There's a DJ who's from Toronto, and he's Caucasian. He speaks better patois than a lot of Jamaicans I've ever met. And he has submerged himself in the culture, right? So his brand is literally white boy, but he speaks like full-on patois, and this is what he uses to market himself. But he's in Jamaica more than a lot of Jamaicans. So my thing is, if you have submerged yourself into a
but that's-
culture,
I'm gonna go back to my quote. Learning new information and changing your mind. Yeah, exactly. No, but see, there's so many
It's
nuances
you
to
know
it,
what?
right?
But,
Yeah.
but to submerge yourself in a culture because you love or you
Yeah.
respect
Yes.
it, and I've done that in different cultures.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, you-
but we're not talking about that. I'm talking about people
I know,
who
who are exploiting
legitimize
it.
somebody else's
right.
world
Yeah, exploit.
just
Yeah.
because you have some privilege of some kind. You see what I'm saying? It's not. I'm talking.
So that goes back to
this is
intent.
well,
Yeah.
but no, I think it's more about privilege. Your world and your universe is such that you can take something from my world that you used to make fun of.
You can
But
exploit
now
it.
you realize you're going to make money off
Yeah.
it, and now suddenly it's good for everybody to wear it. That's a problem for me. Sorry, like I
hear
use
you.
henna
No,
as
no,
an
no.
example.
Yeah.
yeah.
I use henna as an example.
Yep.
Suddenly
So
it's
what
cool.
about all
Don't
the
get me
henna
started on
artists?
ham and cheese egg rolls.
No,
Pardon
what
me?
about
Those are terrible.
There is a henna artist who's
Yes,
not,
the
you
henna-
know,
yeah.
right? I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But maybe that
and
henna
knows that-
artist went to India and went and learned from a master and went and did all
what
that.
about that?
I
Yeah.
can see that. You know, like you said,
Yeah.
submerging
But-
yourself in the culture
But
know
then
what?
I know what you're
appreciate.
talking about. But then, okay, so then what you should see is in their write-ups and in their
Yes.
brandings and in their marketing, something about the cultural relevance of what you are doing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to just walk out and be like, henna, but you've never even once mentioned what's the significance, where it came from, what's the value of it, and now you're just making hand over fist, dollar after dollar.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking
So
for.
my
I'm
second
just
question
saying,
is-
at
Yeah.
least pass on the education
Or-
of
Yes,
what it's about.
yes.
But do
Okay,
people
yeah.
outside North America even think about that?
No.
No,
That's
of
my
course
other
not.
question.
But my
No,
thing is,
no.
it's
Like, is anyone
great.
in India or the Philippines having this conversation? No.
But this
So I
is what
wonder
I'm
why.
saying.
Yeah, they're kind of struggling. I'm just kidding.
It's such a great area. And I made this comment earlier in one of the other segments, is that you have to live and die by the sword that you choose. So if you're somebody who's like, I know nothing about this, I'm starting a business on this, I'm going out to promote it, and there's backlash, good for you, handle it.
Deal with it.
Right? Now, if you're somebody who's truly vested into a culture and you're like, I probably know more than you, because you know what? Being black doesn't mean that I know more about black culture than anybody else in this room. It doesn't, right? So at the end of the day, you have to educate yourself. I love what you're saying about making sure that you can then pass it along from an educational standpoint. I think that's really important. But the other thing is, if that's not your jam and you're just a good businesswoman or businessman, power to you as well. Because you know what? Somebody else sat on that thing that you guys do naturally every single day, and they chose to not monetize it. So I'm not going to knock anybody
But
either way.
Some people don't monetize
We are
it
not going to
because
agree,
it's not
Rana.
meant to be monetized.
Because it's sacred or
It's
because
sacred.
it's,
It's
yeah.
not meant to be monetized.
But-
you have taken something that is spiritual and cultural of somebody else.
Yes.
The wind
and
catchers
you
in
put-
Dollarama?
I'm talking about. So
But listen.
that's cool, but you have to be able to accept the fact.
Yeah.
You have to be able to accept the fact that people like me are going to look at you and be
Which
like,
is fine.
whoa.
Oh,
you
totally.
know?
But let me
And
ask you a
that's,
question.
That's all I'm saying.
So
But
what
I think they're ready
happens-
for the
Like, why
side
are you
eye.
monetizing something
I think
that's
they're ready for
spiritual
the
to us?
side
What
eye.
happens-
Like, you know, like you don't do that. That's so offensive.
So
Like,
look
you
at
know?
this. I went to a local Caribbean restaurant this week.
Are we
okay?
going to talk?
No. This is a different restaurant. Right? So I'm going for. I do eat a lot of food, and this is why it looks so great. Okay. And, but it was interesting to me because what they did was they did a North American take on a Caribbean menu.
There you go.
Okay.
And
That's
so
a
we're
good
doing the
story.
opposite now, right? And for me, I was like, it was delicious. But I came for like my jerk chicken and my escovitch fish,
Yeah.
and I
So you
came
gotta
for all my
come for it.
dishes.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're saying about the cultural aspects is there's so much tourism that happens, right? So when people go to Jamaica and they're like, I had jerk chicken. One, you didn't have the real thing. Okay, you had the like
wasn't
resort
chicken.
style
Yeah,
resort
yeah.
chicken.
Just so you know.
That was
Was
totally
it next to
toned
the
down.
chicken fingers?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and then you come back and you're like, I love Jamaican food, or I love.
Did you have the curry
Okay,
goat? Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, like you had the goat that was really chicken because you
You
couldn't
had
handle
the
the goat.
Applebee's jerk chicken. Yeah.
You know, so I think that we have to look at it both ways. I
But
can
food, you guys, food is not something that's spiritual or cultural to an extent.
Oh, but it can be.
But
I think food is
super-
sacred.
But I'm
in a way.
talking about
Practices,
legitimately.
Yeah, I know what
Okay,
you're
so
saying.
now we're
Spiritual
getting
practice.
into
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's
We've-
food, look,
we've
and
agreed
okay,
to
but if
disagree.
somebody-
But if you're going to
I'm
slam
always
that,
going to be that person, right?
if you're going to
So-
slam that, then that means nobody who isn't Hindu or whatever should ever go to yoga.
But no, but that's
Oh,
well,
come
that's a
on.
different story though.
Oh, is it though?
But that's a
Because
different
it's the
story,
same.
though. No, and you don't want to get me started
It is
on
probably
yoga.
one of the longest culturally
Yes.
appropriated pieces of
and
North American
I'm
culture.
not down with it. Like
Okay.
You
I
don't do
think-
downward dog with it.
Yeah, but I can actually do it because it's part of my world.
I don't know.
You know, but it's just
Okay.
going back to like so. To be fair, like
Yes.
I'm not talking
To wrap
about
this up, to
food.
wrap this up.
I'm talking about super spiritual, cultural things that you do in the sacredness of either weddings or funerals
Yeah.
or something very spiritual.
Yeah.
That is a totally different thing, and you cannot equate that to food. You just cannot do that.
Okay.
Rana,
Because-
I love your point. I value your point, and I
That's my
respect
way.
Okay, so there we go. We're all
This
in
is
this
my
whole
political ending.
We all in this whole
Political.
All right, so you're going to teach us more about the yoga
Yes.
poses and the shantra
Yeah.
and whatever.
Yes.
Yes, all right.
Is it
so-
any
I'll do it
wonder
right
we
now.
never have other things to talk about?
No,
Never.
never. Oh, well, thank you so much, girls.
awesome. This
You know,
is
thank
great.
you to Swish Co-Create for
Yes.
this amazing
Absolutely.
space.
And thanks
Love
to our
it.
guests.
Thank our
And thanks to our
guests.
guests.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. Cheers.
Somebody's thinking that's
Loved it. Good job, ladies.